Many people feel that New York City is the most exciting place in the world, and tonight we begin a two-part series on New York that will explore the question, is this the most exciting city? What's New York City really like? We'll be taking an in-depth look. We'll be going uptown and downtown to the Village. We'll be visiting some museums, into Central Park. We'll be attending a fantastic party on New Year's Eve at the Marriott Hotel, enjoying the classic view of the skyscrapers of Manhattan from the Rainbow Room. We'll be going all around the city, going in some shops and restaurants, taking a look at the skating rink here at Rockefeller Center, and observing some of the bizarre characters of this city.
That is why spiritually they are drained and bankrupt and doomed unless they repent of their wicked ways.
It's a city filled with all kinds of interesting things to see, so let's go sightseeing. As we have a quick look at St. Patrick's Cathedral and the giant Olympic Tower behind it, let me tell you about the programs coming up.
This is Dennis Cowan for Hawaii Geographic Society's World Traveler, taking you to New York City. We're right in the heart of the city right now in Times Square in the middle of Manhattan. You can see the busy traffic and the bright lights and the colorful action all behind me. This is an amazing place. Times Square has gotten a bad rap in the past as a violent place, dangerous place, criminals lurking about, buildings falling apart, which may have been true 10, 20 years ago, but nowadays it's really changed. Times Square has been revitalized, and it's once again the heart of the city. There's a lot of new construction here. There's a lot of theaters, of course. This is the heart of the Broadway Theater District, and we're staying at the Marriott Marquis Hotel, which is right on Times Square. It's an incredible new hotel, just about 7 years old, nearly 2,000 rooms, and it's a fine spot to stay, to be right in the center of action in New York. On this program, we're going to be seeing a lot of the sights of Manhattan. We'll be going uptown and downtown to Greenwich Village. We'll be seeing some museums, the Metropolitan Museum. We'll be going into the Guggenheim. We're going to be seeing restaurants and shops. We'll be in great department stores like Macy's and Lord & Taylor, and just generally giving you a good taste of what it's like to be visiting New York City.
Atlas is holding up the world in front of Rockefeller Center, and just across Fifth Avenue, he faces St. Patrick's Cathedral. This is the largest Catholic Gothic cathedral in the country, with a magnificent interior. Let's do some window shopping on Fifth Avenue. Here's the Christian Dior shop, and we'll be having a look at Cartier. This is one of the original mansions built by the billionaire robber barons at the turn of the century. And this is the kind of mansion that the modern robber barons build. Trump Tower, 68 stories tall, the largest mixed-use apartment building in New York City. Ultra extravagant and super expensive, this tower is a flamboyant monument to affluence by the developer Donald Trump, who's a symbol of the excesses of the 1980s. Well, it's fun inside, but it's very un-New York. These vertical shopping malls have not really invaded New York City the way they have many of our other large cities across the country. New York is still mostly a city of smaller shops and large department stores, and you don't see many of these vertical atriums, but the Trump Tower is certainly worth taking a look at. You just might want to keep your credit card in your pocket here, however, because the prices are almost as high as the building. Well, now we're in the playground of the Donald Trump Tower and the great arcade that goes with it. It's
about 9 stories of shops and restaurants and cafes, and it's a real busy place, especially here in the holiday season. Lots of people going back and forth, and spectacular atrium with the golden escalators going up and down through the arcade of Trump Tower.
Let's get back in our walking shoes and depart this glitzy mall for some more intellectual pursuits further down Fifth Avenue. We'll be visiting the New York Public Library. This magnificent structure was built in 1911. The main reading room goes for 2 blocks, and the library holds about 6 million books, 10,000 periodicals. You give your slip to the counter and they go get your book. Within 10 minutes, they can find any book in the library. One of the most magnificent ceilings in the city here. It's a research library. You can't borrow books from the main branch. There's 80 other branches that you can check books out of. Magnificent Astor Hall. Library is endowed by John Jacob Astor and Andrew Carnegie. Another great institution is the Frick Collection. It has paintings by Piero del Francesca, Bellini, Van Eyck, Vermeer, some truly great masterpieces inside the Frick, and there's also a pleasant courtyard garden inside the Frick. A little known but fine museum in the city. The Whitney is one of several museums of 20th century art, including the Modern and the Guggenheim. And here's the Morgan Library, which is another little known museum in the city. Stands in a fine neoclassical building. You'll see a lot of great architecture throughout Manhattan. Now we're back on Fifth Avenue again, doing some more window shopping only here at Tiffany's. Probably can't afford to spend too much in there, but they do have some less costly items. And just across the street is Bergdorf Goodman, one of the most deluxe department stores. And then we have the Villard houses, mansions built by the head of the Northern Pacific Railroad. Behind it is the Plaza Hotel. As we walk along Madison, Lexington, Fifth, we're generally meandering through this heart of Midtown Manhattan now, enjoying the shop fronts, the bagels, the people watching, and trying to keep our wallet in our pocket. It's hard to do with all these temptations around us. A lot of shops, clothing stores, and then there's FAO Schwartz. The toy store is so popular you've got to stand online to get in at the Christmas season. So we're heading north from Rockefeller Center, which was at about 51st Street, and we're heading up to 57th Street and finally to Central Park at 59th Street. There's about 15 square blocks in this neighborhood that are just fascinating. Number 9 West 57th Street is a landmark building, one of the early postmodern type structures in New York with its soaring, sweeping facade. Shop windows are packed with items and the prices are usually right there, easy to see. There's a lot of bargains to be had in Manhattan. It's a great town for shopping if you know what you're buying. One of the most popular new restaurants in the city is Planet Hollywood. It's actually way too popular. These people waited online for 2 hours in the freezing cold weather just to go in for a hamburger and a milkshake. Well, let's go inside and find out what all this fuss is about. But we didn't wait online for 2 hours because we got there when it opened at 11 o'clock in the morning, which is what we'd recommend for you. If you want to go inside Planet Hollywood, it's a lot of fun. They show movies up on the screen, and of course they've got memorabilia from the movies. They've got the Maltese Falcon, and they've got pretty good food. It's not a gourmet rave, but hamburgers, pastas, salads, some vegetarian items, milkshakes, and the price is like an expensive coffee shop, just about what you'd expect. And it's fun to look around at the memorabilia. They've got R2-D2 in here. You can watch Gene Kelly from your table entertain you. Pieces and bits from Star Wars and Terminator. It's partly owned by Schwarzenegger and by the Terminator himself and Bruce Willis. Like walking into a spaceship in several of the rooms. There's other Planet Hollywoods. There's one in London. It's a very successful chain. They're just opening one now in Hollywood, of all places. You'll see Robin Williams from Baron Munchausen. And it's fun to try and identify all these different movies that are represented inside this crazy place. It's on West 57th Street, just between 5th and 6th, so it's right in the heart of town. Real easy to find it, but don't go right at mealtime. It's way too crowded. Go between meals. They're open from 11 in the morning till midnight. Exiting again back onto West 57th Street, we resume our journey north. Here's the New York Athletic Club on 59th Street. And just around the corner is a rather extravagant apartment house complex called the Alwyn Court Apartments, built in the French Renaissance style. Harkening back to the days of Francis I, there's his symbol above the doorway, that dragon. And around the corner is Carnegie Hall. Great place for concerts, of course. It has some of the finest acoustics in the world, and it's located on 57th Street, just 2 blocks south of Central Park, the lungs of the city. Over 800 acres, nearly 14 million people visit Central Park every year for some much-needed recreation and a little touch of nature. Along with the squirrels and chipmunks, there's 200 species of birds here, nearly 400 species of trees. The park goes from 59th Street to 110th Street and from 5th Avenue over to Central Park West. It's a very big and beautiful space. There's 60 miles of pathways, and you can even ride horses here.
New York City might seem like a concrete urban jungle, and much of it is, but there's also a lot of parks in the city. And certainly the most famous park of all is Central Park, right in the middle of Manhattan. It's an urban oasis designed by Frederick Law Olmsted about 100 years ago to look very much like a natural landscape. It seems like the ponds and trees and hills and rock outcrops have always been here, but actually it was all designed and created by the landscape architectural genius Frederick Law Olmsted. And it makes a great retreat from the city. You can stroll down 5th Avenue and take a left, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by the country. On the other side of the park, we have Central Park West and Central Park South. And behind me, you see the Plaza Hotel, which is one of the most luxurious of all the hotels in the city. There's squirrels here, there's ducks in the pond and birds, and there's a zoo that we'll be visiting. So by all means, when you're in New York, you've got to come and visit Central Park.
The zoo was shut down for half of the 1980s for a complete reconstruction and renovation. And the results are very impressive. It's now one of the finest little urban zoos to be found any place in the world, and it's very accessible. The monkeys feel right at home here in the middle of Manhattan. Further proof that it's a jungle in New York. But they're taking it easy. They have a very nice environment. There's no bars, no cages around them now. It's been reconstructed in a very humane way, and they shipped the larger animals out. The elephants went to larger zoos, and they're concentrating now on smaller animals. They also have crocodiles, and there's a couple polar bears. They've taken an ecological approach to organizing the zoo. There's 100 species of animals, and they're represented in different climate zones. There's the tropics, the polar circle, the California coast. There's an equatorial rainforest even, which is home to the monkeys, and there's free-flying birds, and there's also 2 little flocks of penguins here. They're so ecological, they don't even call it a zoo anymore. It's now the Central Park Wildlife Conservation Center. And if you'd like a much larger and wilder zoo experience, head north to the Bronx for the world-famous Bronx Zoo, which is perhaps the biggest metropolitan zoo in the world. It's got a great collection, and it's also a beautiful park and gardens, and it's right next to the New York Botanical Society as well. That's up in the Bronx. But for the heart of Manhattan, you can't beat the Central Park Zoo for a touch of nature, and you can even hop in a horse carriage if you'd like to be taken around like a royal prince throughout the entire boundaries of Central Park, and they'll take you through the city too. The park consists of several different features, including Wallman Rink, where you can ice skate in the wintertime. There's the Bethesda Fountain and Terrace, there's Sheep Meadow, the Mall, the Great Lawn. There's several ponds and lakes here. This one is called The Pond. And yes, it does look quite cold here. Oops, that's ice. It was dipping into the 30s for part of our Christmas visit to Manhattan. That's to be expected. There's 30 different bridges in the park, too, each one of them different from the next. Well, we've had enough of the park for now. It's time to head back in the city streets, and the immediately surrounding neighborhood is quite attractive. There's the Plaza Hotel, the reigning monarch of New York City hotels, built in the French Renaissance style. When it was opened in 1907, it was proclaimed the best hotel in the world. And it's only gotten better since. Donald Trump has recently purchased it and completely overhauled the interior. There's 800 rooms in the hotel, and a lot of the furnishings are brought in directly from Europe. The famous Palm Court is a wonderful spot for tea. Even the front steps are quite attractive here at the Plaza.